Today I, Shatuni Ghosh, your host for the day, would like to welcome you to the International Conference on Bengal Basin and Bay of Bengal Interaction Sphere, Pan-Indian and Pan-Asian Contacts, organized by Kolkata Society for Asian Studies in collaboration with Anthropological Survey of India. The event would be held over 2 days, where in 8 academic sessions along with inaugural and valedictory session at the beginning and at the end respectively, we would delve into the intricate historical and cultural tapestry woven within the Bengal Basin and Bay of Bengal region. Though a comprehensive approach encompassing maritime technology, trade dynamics, archaeological excavations, urban development studies, analysis of cultural exchanges, environmental sustainability, consideration and collaborative effort to create a traveling digital exhibition. It aims to honor and showcase rich heritage and enduring significance of this vibrant interaction zone. Now, I would like to begin with the inaugural session, and for that I would like to introduce, I would like to call Dr. Shormishta De Basu, Dr. Shubhadra Channa Mitra Channa, sorry. I'm really sorry, I'm a bit nervous right now. Professor Gautam Sengupta, Professor Bhalamunti B. Sharma, Dr. Shapna Bhattacharya, Dr. Kalyan Kumar Chakravarti, Professor Anindya Jyoti Majumdar, and Dr. Orpita Basu.
We are already taken out.
Don't answer this.
Now I would like to, we would have a small felicitation ceremony, and I would like to request Ms. Shoma Dash as a member of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies to felicitate our special guest, Dr. Shubhadra Mitra Channa, who has retired as professor from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi in 2016. He was the senior vice president of International Union of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences from 2018 to 2023 and was former chair of Commission of Marginalization and Global Apartheid IUAS 2021 and chair of Commission on Anthropology of Women IUAS 2019-2030. Her research interests are in marginalization and identity studies, gender, cosmology, urban communities, and landscape. She has taught human rights at University of Calcutta and has been a visiting professor at Central University, University of Hyderabad, Kannur University, Kerala, and North Bengal University. She has been the president of Indian Anthropological Association for 5 years and editor of journal Indian Anthropologist from 2000 to 2014. She has been an editorial board member of MAN, the journal of Royal Anthropological Institute. She was the recipient of SC Gold Medal from Asiatic Society of Calcutta for lifetime achievement in cultural anthropology. She has been awarded then now we would move. Then again, I would like Ms. Shoma Gupta to felicitate our guest of honor, Professor Gautam Sengupta, He is a retired. He has retired professor on the Department of History, Vishwabharati Shastri. He is also the former Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. Now, a special guest, Professor Bhalamuni B. Sharma, Director of Anthropological Survey of India since September 8, 2003, and he is before that he is also taught as professor at University of Hyderabad from 2009 to 2023. Now I would ask Shoma ma'am to felicitate Dr. Kolan Kumar Chakraborty. He is an Indian historian, art historian, writer, ancient anthropologist, academician, and administrator, known for his intellectual cross-disciplinary research activism. I would also like to ask again Shoma ma'am to felicitate Professor Anindo Jyoti Majumdar, President of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies.
With your permission, let me introduce myself. I am a professor at Chandrapur University, Department of International Relations, and at present I am with the KSAS as the president, but obviously with the collaboration of all the other members, this particular organization actually trying to expand itself and trying to become a very kind of think tank in this particular part of the country. So that is what I am. Thank you very much.
We have another member for our inaugural session, Dr. Shopna Bhattacharya. She is here. She is coming. She is not here yet. She is coming soon. So now I would like to ask Shomishta ma'am, Dr. Shomishta. Oh, sorry. We will have a small inaugural ceremony right now. Before then, Dr. Shomishta Devasu would give her welcome address.
Geological and modern geopolitical relations and background of the Bay of Bengal surrounded neighboring countries. Director Anthropological Survey of India, Dr. Kolan Kumar Chakraborty, Professor Anindo Jyoti Majumdar, President Kolkata Society for Asian Studies, Professor Shopna Bhattacharya, Dr. Korpita Bosu, Treasurer Kolkata Society for Asian Studies. On the panel of this inaugural session, and respected Dr. Shottobhuta Chakraborty, General Secretary of the Asiatic Society, former President of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies, our Vice President, possibly not here, Professor Ramita Rai and Professor Duda, they will join us shortly. Resource persons, dignitaries, participants, the media persons, Dr. Amit Ghosh, possibly she is not here now, and all the section officers, staff members of Anthropological Survey of India and the members of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies. It is my privilege to welcome you all on behalf of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies and my own behalf. Today we are assembled here to discuss and focus light on the history to join us and present his deliberation Tomorrow, Professor Meshba Kamal will come from Bangladesh to join us. Dr. Selvakumar V has joined us from Tamil University. Professor B.T. Lemke has joined us from Shillong, Peru. And Professor Suchandra Bose has come to deliver a talk from Hyderabad. Professor Shusmita Basu Mojumdar, head of the Department of Ancient Indian History and Culture, has joined us, and academically she has collaborated with this project. We are grateful to you, ma'am. Hope she is here. No.
Dr. Ruby Kalchadri is here at 94.
Oh.
She is the doyen of the arts and crafts movement in the entire country.
Welcome, ma'am. Professor Sudhika Rai Bandopadhyay will also chair a session tomorrow from this department, and she will also one of the executive members of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies. We have arranged a special talk of Sri Sharan Bhattacharya, both anthropologist and a researcher on Bengal maritime culture. He has exhibited some of his sample boats here for showcasing the rich heritage of marine trade and cultural exchange between the neighboring countries of the Bengal Basin. There is a deep-rooted heritage of cultural relations between these countries, which can be excavated through archaeological excavations as well as proved by the anthropological evidences. Modern geopolitical research has established that and also proved that these countries can establish a strong socio-economic bonding through their cultural and historical resources. For that, we should develop our people-to-people relations more powerfully. Anyway, let's begin this discussion and hope we shall succeed towards our mission. Welcome you all. Thank you for joining us.
Now I would like to request Dr. Shumadra Mitra Channa to give her special address.
Thank you so much. And I'm very grateful to Sharmishka and Professor Sharma for hosting me here and also inviting me to give the inaugural lecture. Well, I will be talking obviously generally and introducing the topic. The falsity of identifying certain geopolitical demarcations as actual convergences of specific ethnic, social and cultural and behavior. Cultures have traveled through the human mediums across seas, mountains and deserts, intermingling and exchanging goods, ideas and influences. The misconceptions created by European claims to have been the first to travel across the globe were set aside by Eric Wolff in his monumental work, Europe and the People Without History. At present, there is enough archaeological and prehistorical evidences to show that humans have always traveled. If they had not, then we would not have all been confined, then we would all have been confined to the continent of Africa. Each cultural region can only be located and captured in a moment of time, never across the temporal zone, and these momentary captures are the photographic culmination of long histories and interactions that manifest as quote-unquote regional, only in that flash, but otherwise are parts of a stream that has been flowing and continues to flow. What can be identified as a region is primarily in terms of its geography and ecology and not its cultural, political or ethnic identity. In that sense, The use of the concept of Bengal Delta is appropriate as it refers to a geographical location and an ecology of which the cultural dimensions have been changing over time and whose habitat exhibits the footprints of various shades of human populations and cultures that have both traversed it in transit or have settled down to intermingle and produce the present communities, which again are numerous in their differences and collective histories. About 100 years ago, Bishop F.B. Fisher of the Wesleyan Episcopal Church had written that Calcutta occupied a strategic position on the route taken by populations moving from the southern part of Asia, that is to quote, from the northwest to the southeast, from Persia, Mesopotamia, Afghanistan, the Punjab and upper and central India towards Bengal and Burma. Some of these lines of movement terminate with the coal and iron fields around Asansol. Others end with the city of Calcutta itself, while others pass through Calcutta down into the wonderfully rich and fertile fields of Burma and the Malay Peninsula. Quote, quotation closed. In this quote, the bishop is trying to highlight the wisdom of Job Charnock in establishing a city in a pestilent swamp, a city that provided a key destination for many people seeking trade and livelihood, especially those moving in from the more arid regions in the northwest to the fertile regions around the Bengal Delta. The success of Charnock's settlement is seen in that by the year 1921, the population of Calcutta exceeded 1 million people. The Bengal Basin, with its fertile agricultural potential, its rich resources, as well as its strategic location between the seas and the mountains, has lured populations from many adjoining areas. It has also provided passage for the stream of culture and human bodies flowing in from a vast region, making it by trade, travel, and ethnological campaigns to the north, south, east, and west. The four major factors that one can identify which motivated the flow of goods and people both into and out of this region were for trade, formation of new settlements, political upheavals, and religion. Trade, livelihoods, and the search for new horizons has been a motivating factor for land travel, and sea voyages are seen from the ancient travel routes like the Silk Route from the memoirs of travelers such as Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta, and the remains of those who went on foot across continents even before the advent of the wheel, water travel, and domestication of horses. What spirit of adventure drove those ancient humans, or what natural disaster, we may not know for certain, but what is surely known is the spread of human genetic material, physical substances like seeds and flora and fauna, as well as cultural artifacts that is clear evidence of mobility. Neither political nor ecological barriers have ever stopped people from reaching out to venture and seek out new territories. Bengal's strategic position between the sea coast and the Himalayas has kept it open for movement to both land and water, and numerous movements are populated it from the very ancient times. The Bengal Delta is an ecological mix of different kinds of terrains, including mountains and highlands, along with waterways, marshes, and tropical rainforests. These different ecological zones specialize in certain key resources native to them, giving rights to exchange of these goods. For example, the Himalayan salt trade, through which the arid Tibetan plateau exchanged salt for essential items like rice, oil, and sugar, of which there was a local scarcity. Salt, wool, rice, and sugar are some examples of goods that passed through ancient trade routes that had existed for millennia and were part of the feudal and even tribal economies. Trade has always brought people in contact to intermingle, not as automatons but as cultured humans who exchange many intangible goods along with the objects they trade or barter with each other. Walter and Hennessy, in their volume published 2023, described that in pre-colonial times, significant trade existed between highlight northeast India and Burma as substantial goods in the form of mineral wealth like gold, copper, limestone and jade, and also valuables like elephant tusk, silk, opium and timber passed between southern China and Bengal through the Burma corridor. From as early as the 13th century, horses from Mongolia were being traded in Bengal via Myanmar when it was under Mongolian rule. Because of the market in Bengal for these horses, the Mongols ignored the Burmese market, preferring rather to trade at a longer distance. During the colonial period, the British transformed the face of every region they conquered and caused immense political upheavals because of their trade interests, such as for Pashmina, wool and borax across the central Himalayas, and for eastward trade to Tibet, Burma and beyond through the northeastern side of the Himalayan frontier. British capitalist aspirations across the Himalayan frontiers led them to annex territories such as that of Sikkim, which they wrested from the Gurkhas and restored to the Chogyal in 1816 on condition and thereby keeping open the trade corridor to Tibet, Western China and Inner Asia through their territory. However, because of the unrest from the Sikkimese side, British finally made it into an Indian state and also annexed Kalimpong from Bhutan to strengthen their control over the Tibetan corridor. The first tea plantations in this region were established in 1856 and further enhancement of trade from North Bengal was accomplished with the building of roads and railways. One category of people, the trade routes were therefore strengthened considerably during the colonial period, but only to facilitate the movement of those materials that could feed into the British capitalist interest. Not only goods, but human bodies also traversed the corridors that were meant for trade and for various reasons. One category of people who are usually more mobile than the others are the ones on the margins, both physically and politically, whose motivation to look for means of survival always pushes them a little further than what those who live within their comfort zones would attempt. The others are the ones who are less tied to power centers or who are more independent and subordinated, relying more on their own decisions than being dictated from power. These are usually those who occupy regions that are on the peripheries of nations and states, far away from the seats of power and are both ungovernable and actually ungoverned. Scholars such as Michaud and Schlegel have referred to these regions as zonia, the ones which feel the least impact of power centers around them and which consequently get the least benefits also. Jean Michaud in 2010 had drawn a map of zonia in South Asia, imagining it as broadly stretching between the uplands of Pakistan and Afghanistan to the west and the central highlands of Vietnam in the east. We can imagine parts of the Bengal Delta lying somewhere on these lines, contributing to the vitality of the whole. One such specific location in the Bengal region is the Chittagong Hill Tracts, from where people have been moving out and in as a regular flow. During the medieval period, the CHT was a prosperous area of communities who did cotton cultivation and were the main suppliers of this essential commodity to the Mughal Empire. During British rule, many of them were transported to Burma as labor, and later when Burma and the Indian subcontinent were free of British rule, each of them became separate nations. The migrants from CHT, now known as Rohingyas, were left with an ambiguous identity. So I won't go into the Rohingya problem, we all know about it. While most people on these borderlands are more mobile than those living on the plain settlements, the tribal or indigenous people are liable to be most mobile. The reasons can be seen in that they have either tenuous lines to the land, been shifting cultivators for agents or pastorals, or they often face oppression from the dominant communities. The settled cultivators and those closer to the centers of power are less likely to be mobile. The Santals from Bengal and Bihar plateaus migrated to Assam in the northeast Burma and the highlands of Chittagong Hill Tracts, where they introduced wet rice cultivation to largely shifting cultivating people. The last name now refer to themselves as Pahadia Bengalis. In addition to Santals, the Oraons and Mundas also traveled to Assam to do rice cultivation. In the Chittagong hill tracts, the local indigenous people, the Bantaris, Ramputs and Assamese, welcomed them as rice cultivation was looked upon them as a superior form of cultivation. The Santals had moved to other regions of Bengal also. Tanika Sarkar relates how the Santals poured into the Malda district of West Bengal from 1800 onwards, and about 20,000 Santals are settled there till 1900. While the Chittagong hill tracts can be seen as a turbulent region for various reasons, Burma, lying east across the Bengal region, has also been a hot seat of movements, especially as already mentioned, it was part of the thriving trade routes between the east and southwest. After colonizing Bengal, the British, in their political attempts at control of more territories, had engaged with Burma in the first Anglo-Burmese War, which lasted from 1824 to 1826, and which significantly impaired much of these trade routes, depleting mountain passages and depopulating the towns that were thriving off these trade. Later, with colonial rule providing safe passage, Burma became a destination for many people for different reasons. People belonging to higher class castes other than the indentured labor like the Rohingyas also went from Bengal to Burma, like anthropologist Pandian's grandfather. There is a book by Pandian who describes his anthropological book, who describes his grandfather's journey to Burma and the rest of it. While many went for trade, they also went as government servants and as a variety of professions such as doctors and engineers. These expatriate Bengalis of those times are part of our family histories, as many of us, including myself, have an uncle or someone who was in Burma, and from where they were forced to return when the Japanese occupied Rangoon during the Second World War. The close ties that were enabled during the days of the British Empire were almost abruptly severed by the World War and then by the freedom from colonial rule that left the two countries as sovereign states. Yet Burma remains enshrined in the Bengali imaginary in the form of literature, songs and residual cultural elements, not to forget the unforgettable character of Obhaya created by Sharat Chandra Chatterjee in his Trump series. The story of Obhaya also brings home another aspect of travel, the crossing of cultural boundaries, where the normative sphere becomes more lax as one moves away from the core centers of conservatism. We have the example of Iravati Khan. For example, a lot of women received more education in Burma than they would have in India of that time. The prime example is Iravati Khan, who was born and was named after the Iravati river in Burma, and she also received high education. But Burma was not the only region for interaction. Countries as far away as European ones also came much closer. The French, Portuguese and the British were three major European powers who landed in the Bay of Bengal through the sea route. These traders and travelers ultimately decided to take over the country, but even as they did so, there was a two-way and not a one-way exchange of people and culture. Intangible goods like technology, language and religious beliefs travel faster and have been doing so for centuries. But these goods were not the only things exchanged. Beliefs, languages and deities also traveled along with the material goods. There is sufficient evidence in terms of incorporation of words from each of these languages in this area. The Portuguese and French have both contributed to modern Bengali as it is spoken, but it is the British who finally took near complete control, and their influence upon this region is more profound than anywhere else in India. The exchange was mutual, although lopsided, and the British genetic and cultural material remains as components of present-day Bengal and may be observed floating in England as well. As Trotman has pointed out, the base of the statue of Sir William Jones in the St. Paul's Cathedral in London depicts the Hindu myth of Samudra Manthan, the Kurma avatar in Vishnu and Lakshmi. And Jones is shown with a large replica of the Book of Manu resting on his hand. This statue, crafted by John Bacon, was installed by the East India Company and is another symbol of the cultural syncretism made possible by institutes such as the Asiatic Society of Bengal. Missionaries and carriers of various gospels were another kind of travelers that have existed for a long time. Gosais of Bengal took the gospel of Buddhism to Tibet via some perilous mountain routes. Hindu holy men fakirs traveled to the mountains across Afghanistan and other places. Having traveled from India in the early 13th to 14th century, Buddhism returned to India in the early 60s along with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The concept of landscape. Now, while traveling, these beliefs and rituals take on the colors of the local culture, as the result is a kaleidoscope of various practices and thoughts that spread across the landscape. The concept of landscape makes it evident that it does not imply any boundaries, but rather a spread, not uniform but shaded, and in the case of a geopolitical territory, the shading is in terms of what Singh 2016 refers to as quote-unquote vernacular histories, which ties them to the contingencies of encounters and the peculiarities of places. The region encompassing the Bengal Delta is one with its own vernacular history, but one that shapes off into other wider global histories. For example, the conquest of Burma in the 12th and 13th century by the Mongolian Empire is one example of how a historical event in one part of the world affects the other, as Bengal became entangled with far of Mongolia. The Bengal famine of 1942 is another example of a war in Europe affecting the poor peasants in another part of the world, beautifully depicted by Satyajit Ray in his film Ashwini Shanti. The colonization of Bengal linked it to European history, parts of which became incorporated into its soils of Christianity, the English language, literature, and various other cultural elements like food and clothing. Because of the relatively open border with Myanmar during the colonial period and even later, through the ethnic and linguistic similarities with certain indigenous groups, a number of ethno-linguistic groups are spread across India, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, for example, the Rohingyas and various Naga and Kuki groups. It is not possible to construct a narrative about any region without describing the points of conflict, the disturbances and tensions that are to be found everywhere. Every landscape has its turbulence and schisms. The Bengal region has had more than a share of political upheavals in the form of multiple cleavages in recent history. Once during the partition of the country and secondly during the formation of Bangladesh. However, the position of the indigenous people of this region has always remained precarious. With greater integration of this region with the centers of power and control by the external colonizers, the worst sufferers have been the indigenous tribes. As pointed out by Archana Prasad, the spread of industrial capitalism during the colonial period led to the linking of the local forest to the global market, depriving the forest-dwelling tribes of their centuries-old habitations and means of livelihoods, and more forests were brought under control of the central state and reserved for profit-making by them. This brief excursion into the history and population movements across this region is just to introduce the region, not as a physical space or even as a geopolitical entity, but as a landscape, a scenario that is imbued with meaning, introduced to human perception, which in turn is informed by the memories, by the shadows of the culturally significant events that spread much outside of their specific location, to remain embedded in the mosaic of real and imagined tapestries of belongingness and identity. Take for example the name Palashi, which may now just be a small village in Bengal, but which for the Bengalis and to some extent for all Indians evoke the larger image of colonization, a defeat and a betrayal, and the entire transformation of an era, when one defeat on the battlefield meant the beginning of the end, the entry of the East India Company into Indian territory, not just as traders and as rulers. And lastly, a region is not made up just of myths and stories and of its flora and fauna, but is also representative of a shifting power tree, where the narratives of the dominant hold center stage and overshadow the stories of those pushed to the margins. The Bengal Delta, its history and its imaginaries, are mostly seen as and understood through the eyes and practices of the dominant groups. Smaller entities have got lost, their stories turned to ashes, such as the Tripuri, Lothras, Lipchas, and Raghas, among others. The earliest residents of this region have been the first to have faded away. Victims of what Nathan and Kaka have referred to as adverse inclusion, a process by which disenfranchised people are reintegrated into marginal and degraded position. So, to end, what I really want, just to sum up, the Bengal Delta has therefore no boundaries that are real. What we assume as a definition of any kind is only conceptual, a facility to enable discourses and analysis, and nothing beyond that. Thus, in spite of the formation of post-colonial nation-state boundaries that seek to impose strict control on any kind of movement across their borders, there persists even in the 21st century, to quote, a continuous mobility in the Bengal or Burma, Myanmar, Thailand borderlands, from food, powder and Hennessy. One has seen the cinematic expression of the border crossings between West and East Bengal in the films such as Visharjan and Shankaji. Therefore, for a region to have an ethnographic existence, it needs only to show some degree of density in its local relational structures and collective imaginaries, and the rest is left to the analyst to construct and present in a credible form.
I would like to ask Professor Anindra Majumdar to chair this session and say something.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Professor, for your relevant presentation, introducing the region, its history, people, and great evolution. This session is about setting the platform that would, in fact, make way for specific presentations in the forthcoming sessions. There will be others, in fact, dignitaries here. I would not, try to impose any kind of conditions upon them, but I simply request them to also keep track of time, so that we will be able to finish this in somewhat in schedule. One aspect of felicitation, Dr. Shomna Prasad is here with us. So,
drinking water from three seas, three Samudra Taveti Tavana. So three seas are clearly the Eastern Sea, the Western Sea, and the, of course, Bharata Sagar. And even in the 4th, 5th century AD, that is sea, that's fashionable now, these two huge water bodies are viewed as Purva and Upper seas. I can quote from Kalidas, Purva Paradhyam Tayamidi Vagacha Stitya Puchit Gauravanaganta. So the Himalaya two ends, steps one in the Eastern Sea and the Upper Western Sea. And as late as the 10th, 11th century, this particular water body, if I put it that way, this huge stretch of water is known as Bangosagar. So, Bangosagar, Purva Samudra, these are the identities by which the Indian mind would recognize these water bodies, these seas, the Indian Ocean, the Western Ocean, Upper Samudra, and Purva Samudra, Bangosagar. So because the nomenclature Bay of Bengal, I presume, is of rather late origin. But sea, I'll try to focus on a very limited area. Sea, for example, remains deeply, I repeat, deeply entrenched into the Indian psyche. I shall turn to two religious tradition, the Brahminical and the Buddhist, to to prove my point. Arya Saptashruti, which is a segment of Hilo Harivangsha, which is a late segment of Mahabharata, refers to certain perils from which the all-powerful goddess rescues her devotees. So one of the great perils is peril of the sea. Similarly, if we turn to the Buddhist tradition, a very important iconographic type, iconographic form is Ashtamahavayo Tara, the goddess Tara, who rescues her, who delivers her, who saves her devotees from 8 great perils. And one of the 8 great perils is the peril of the sea. If you turn to any of the larger stelae of Ashtamahavayo Tara, you have one in India Museum, you have one in Patna Museum, you have one in Bhubaneswar Museum, you will see that around the central image there are representations of 8 great perils: the perils of fire, the peril of wild animal, peril of royal hostility, and one of the perils is the peril of sea, and that is represented through water vessels getting submerged in the waters. So this remains, the image of sea remains deeply, very deeply entrenched into the Indian psyche, particularly the psyche of people who live around the sea. And this is further illustrated by the reference to very elaborate narrative, medieval narrative of Bengal called the Mongala Kavyas. Mongala Kavyas are a rich source of historical insight, if not historical data, historical insight, and Professor Kapur Kumar Rai Chaudhary, in his famous book, Bengal, the Time of Akbar and Jahangir, made very intelligent, innovative use of this material. Now, if you turn to the Mongala Kavyas inevitably carries forward, in fact, the tale of merchants moving into the sea from the waters of river, presumably Ganga, they are going to the seas. And there are many interesting segments of the narrative: the perils of the sea, the dangers of the netherworld, the ferocious aquatic animals, the threat of what is called the deities who are not deities of the higher order, nor are the beings of the lower order. They are placed in between, as Professor J.N. Banerjee, the doyen of Indian iconography, called them Vyantara Devatas, the threat of the Vyantara Devatas. There are many threats, and the reward of, or possible reward of great pain, significant pain from the islands of Indian archipelago. So, please remember that going by the historical evidence or historical understanding, the Mongala Kavyas were composed around 16th, 17th century, and that was certainly not the best time, that was not the best time for Indian merchants venturing into the sea. But they do occur curiously in the narrative. How do we explain it? Probably these narratives continue or carry forward the legacy of a past when merchants along the merchants of Bengal and private merchants along the coast would venture into the sea. Initially, they would go right up to Sri Lanka. So probably this collective memory, which was entrenched in Indian psyche, collective memory must have been developed, fabricated during the early historic period when we know of seafaring activities, when we know even, I think, my friend Suchandra or Sushmita, we know of different kind of evidence seeds from Mritika area surfacing in South Asia. Very interesting iconographic, Buddhist iconographic forms which are certainly based on southeastern Bengal archetypes, again appearing in peninsular Thailand and central Java. So the connection of Bengal with the rest of the world, particularly along the Southeast Asian countries, must have remained, as I said, deeply rooted in the minds of the people. And in the 16th and 17th century, when there was really nothing beyond the internal network of trade, these stories surfaced. There is a genuine need to relook at this story, narrative and develop a new kind of tool to understand the Bengal, Bay of Bengal and its interaction at different level, between different countries, different, I would not say country, between different cultural, historical regions. So this is something that needs to be done, and the ethnographic work in many cases has expanded our understanding of this problem, and I am sure that a combination of historical, literary and ethnographic methods would ultimately bring in a very comprehensive, very incisive understanding of how Bay of Bengal interacted all around. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And I also quite agree with this particular idea of looking into this collective memory. Because if India wants to become a naval power, as it wants to, then it has to, has to conform to the geopolitical arrangements that India has. And what kind of tradition we had, that would be a fantastic lesson to us. Thank you very much. And now we have our special guest.
Thank you, sir. Very good morning to all of you. Quite happy to be here with all of you. It's a great opportunity for me to learn many things. And I'm particularly happy that this particular seminar is being held in the premises of the Anthropological Survey of India. And Anthropological Survey of India, with this kind of infrastructure, is facilitating these intellectual activities. I'm quite glad about it. I think this is the second event of the Kolkata Society which is being organized in this premises. We had one in the last month probably, and this is the second one, right?
2022 last
22 last year.
20.
Okay, not recently. Okay, sorry about that. I forgot about it. Any case, thank you. I'm quite delighted that such learned scholars like Subhadra Mukherjee, my well-wisher, great supporter of my journey in anthropology. She is here. I'm also saying Professor Gautam Sen Gupta, former DC. Sir, I'm particularly happy that you could give some time to join this conference, and similarly Dr. Swapna Bhattacharya, of course, Kalyan Kumar Chakravarti, all the very great scholars are here today to discuss on this very interesting topic of Bengal Basin and Bay of Bengal interactions here. Well, the address of the special guest, my teacher Subhadra Rajinani, has given a good overview of the topic, history, population, dynamics of movements of people and the consequences. I think she has covered all these issues. And I think anthropologists will be particularly interested in these kinds of studies, and particularly benefited out of this kind of studies which come from different perspectives, history, archaeology, geography, anthropology, and other perspectives. And when these kinds of studies are being made in the international borders now, they are even more important. I don't want to spend more time on this topic, two reasons. First is there are many other scholars who have come prepared to speak quite intensively on this subject. And secondly, I am not also a specialist in this area. I belong to anthropology, but I've been working in the area of middle anthropology for some time now. So I'm not really a specialist in this subject. But still, I know the value of this particular subject and topic. Quite happy that scholars from different disciplines are participating. It will be a great seminar, I'm sure. If I understood, I think anthropologists have followed the colonial traditions and have paid a lot of attention to the understanding of the diversity of India. The ethnographic studies on each of the communities have contributed more to the understanding of the diversity of India. I think the regional approach to the study of the community has not been the approach of anthropologists for quite some time. I think the Canadian anthropologists who started this regional approach in anthropology more recently, I would say around 1970s, to be or little distinct. I mean, I'm talking about the more scholarly kinds of studies, has benefited the folklore studies to know better the value of the regional approach. But today, we need, I think, this approach much more than the traditional studies focusing on each of the small communities and talking about diversities of the people. Definitely studying, taking the regional approach and studying the communities in terms of the relationships, interethnic relationships in the region, and how that regional kind of cultures also emerge in this process of interactions and all would be highly beneficial. I'm quite glad to know that such things are being discussed here, more particularly about the migrations and the movements of the people from one area to the other, as Madam was talking about, the mobility and all. As people of Bengal have moved and have contributed to the dynamics of the cultures there, and similarly, people from somewhere also migrated to Bengal Basin. I can say this because I know Sabaras of Srikakulam district have migrated and settled here. I know to work as in the tea gardens and all have also been a part of this Bengal data. I'm sure these interactions have given new kinds of dynamics and all. Well, I just say this much and say thank you all for giving your time and taking part in this seminar. And first, the Survey of India is benefiting. Thank you all.
for your support as well. We now have message from Dr. Sharma.
Am I hard?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. First of all, sorry for being late because of my little physical difficulty. Otherwise, it's fine. I would like to show my respect to the senior scholars, colleagues, especially in the Inaugural Session, as well as all. And I would like to especially thank Dr. Shomishta Bashu and Dr. Purta Basu for their most inspiring gesture that drove me here. Because nowadays I have to cut short programs because of many reasons. Somehow I have decided to come and make a small message, and I have told Shomishta that I will be taking not more than 10 minutes, which she kindly gave me. A message always connects something like prophet or so. When I taught Myanmar, Southeast Asian studies, and Southeast Asia was always my area, connecting Southeast Asia, especially southern Bengal or Bengal with Rakhine State, then farther to up to Thailand, Karachi. So this Mon or Austric dominated, once Austric dominated region, how the Austric who were actually, as you know from many works, including that of P.C. Bachis, that they were actually maritime based, how they were always cornered our Mons or Santal community or Mons in Lower Burma and Lower Burma, then before during the Arabati period it was centralized in central Thailand. That is also one of the questions or message that my students, especially I am addressing the students, because people give me some kind of recognition for developing this South and Southeast Asia connection. So this is one of the questions. The second, of course, that well, we can always, and we have always done, as my colleague, very old colleague of mine, colleague not directly, but yes, a friend for many years, Dr. Sengupta rightly said, the maritime aspect. If you read my latest book, Rabindranath Tagore and Myanmar, India's Actist Policy, it is also my long journey of looking at Myanmar from Bengal or Eastern part. It shows also that 7 times Tagore went to, first visit ever was actually Japan, but on way he stopped in Burma, and his first birthday was celebrated in Rangoon. And then if I look at how because of the Thai cynic, in German we call group pressure from China, when the Chinese group of the Sino-Tibetan were coming down, you know, especially disintegration of southwestern China, and then the Shan state, of course, became a big challenge for the Burman, which is itself is a mixed Myanmar people, and the Myanmar people's identity is very difficult to understand. But if you are interested, you can see a latest book in which leading scholars of Myanmar have written on Myanmar from various aspects, from geopolitical aspects, from ethnic aspects, from religious aspects, and I wrote nuances of power sharing, conflict, and consensus at the crossroads, Myanmar at the crossroads, from Vivekananda Foundation, edited by, and all the former ambassadors and very eminent scholars also written. Now Ganga, you know, if you see how I look, after having worked 30 years on this basin, Iravati, Sitang, Iravati, Kalakan, then Gornafuli, then in between Lembrong, I think of my great friend Pamela Woodman. As soon as she came at my request at Maulana Azad Institute. I immediately thought of Gautam, and Gautam immediately said, please bring Pamela, please bring Pamela. So actually she is no more, and also my friend Mahmoud, who wrote on the mosque, he is also no more. But there are still a very vibrant group, and I was once very active in this group, and the first ever maritime conference, Maritime Frontier of Burma in 1993 by Royal Netherlands Academy, gave a lot of attention to various issues which Professor Shivadra has pointed out. So this is a very big question, how, and there are, if you go through the Burma Research Society journal, even Indian Antiquary, a journal of the Royal Asiatic Society, you can see the Mons and Mundas of India and Mons of Lower Burma and Central Thailand. We cannot ethno-linguistic, fascinating. So we have forgotten Rus, we have forgotten, even I was surprised to see that there was not a single article, only besides Vijit Datta in Poshtim Bongo Patrika, there was not a single article on Tagore's 3 visits to Myanmar. So I was very happy that he gave this importance to this maritime contact between this entire delta basin. So when we think of, I have still 4 minutes time, if we look at the from 15th to 17th century, Arakan Lakshmai Bangla Sahitya, and the people went from Kumilla and Noakhali and the region, that is economy, that also the British still going on, but that was a period when the Muslims took Buddhists and the Chakmas also took Muslims. It is because of this integrity. This is quite natural. But if you look at the Greek description and then of the entire region at Arakan is the Persian, I think, Pracho. Pracho was actually Bengal. So India started with Bengal. India did not start at the end in Bengal. So this is very important. And these words that I am telling, now I will stop even before. So when you take up Dharamati's declined, yeah, but the Shan, because the Shan took the Theravada Buddhism, they integrated, and the myth that the Rakhine and the Myanmar people, of the Burman people, were in enmity, is totally a myth. They needed this because only Arakan Yuma was in between, because of the jade trade, because of the Bay of Bengal connection, because of the entry to the Bay of Bengal. And therefore, I know Myanmar language. I have not written that I know also Latin, and I have studied European or Romano-Germanic history, because this is understood. If I write something on German comparative land grants, then obviously, and I'm thankful that Shuchandra is here, because Shuchandra was in this team when we brought out this book from Glasgow University. So I request my young students to learn the languages. This is something very, very urgent, and I congratulate also Kolkata Society being a member of this, a member as well as advisory committee member, and I pay respect to Dr. Dilip Ghosh, who really wanted my association when it started in IGNOU, in Maulana Azad College, where he used to come every Saturday, and we sat together in a small nuclear body that has blossomed so much. And with Anthropological Survey of India, I have also a very long relation. I used to come very often to your office, and I'm very happy, sir, to be here in this new office. And here I will end only by again inviting my students or young generation to take up the entire basin. not only Bengali or actually the Greek, starting from Greek, but also then I just come back and end here that when we see the urbanization process as in Alawi's Padmavati, which is actually based on Padmavat of Malik Muhammad Jaisi. So it is Indian. Islam is a part of Indian tradition, and it is Sufistic Islam. It is actually the perfect integration of Bhaktivad with Mahayana Buddhism. That's why I have written in the small CV that polymorphic tradition is within Islam, within Hinduism or Vaishnavism or Shaivism, and also in Mahayana Buddhism, because when you accept female as God in Tana, you accept the free mixing, and then you come to Bhaktivad. And I remember my wonderful conversation with Professor Ratindranath Mukherjee, Professor D.C. Sharkar, and whose name are very respectfully remembered, whose books are taught in universities in Mandalay and Yangon. So this will be my last one, to go back to French scholarship, because in Thailand's Chulalongkorn University I have seen many books translated into English from French, and I have the titles, but since respected chairperson has told me to stop, I have really decided to stop. And thank you so much once again everyone, and also Shomitra, and welcome to everyone as a member of the advisory committee.
Thank you, Professor Bhattacharya. We can always have our discussion during the break as well. We can continue with this discussion during the break as well.
Yes, no, I have also stopped within 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very
This
much.
has to be said also.
Thank you very much. Now we have this keynote speech, and I will request Dr. Bala Kumar Chakraborty to present.
Well, as my distinguished guests are here, most of them I know for years. For me, as honorary advisor to the KSAS, this is not a seminar, it is a workshop. It is not designed as an instrument of contemplation, but for action. We are always talking about SDG goals nowadays, the 17 SDG goals, in which mountain, sea, and land, the conflict. And when we look at the Ganga river basin, it is also the Ganga, Brahmaputra, Meghna basin. And it is also the route of journey for hundreds of Lok Sabhas, intercultural translators, who have journeyed through the Bengal basin, both across Taklamakan Desert in Central Asia, as well as the Indian Ocean, to spread their message. Having excavated some of the images in different parts of the country, especially Chhattisgarh, I recall that having excavated the Rudra Shiva Pashupati image at Tala, 5th century AD image, and I find an exact, not an exact replica, but a similar image in the Longman cave in China, with a slight renaming of the accompanying deities as bodhisattvas. But the iconography cannot be discussed here, is extremely similar. What happens is that the course of the journey across Central Asia, the Rudra Shiva image, Pashupasha Vimokshana, it gets transformed and feminized into Kuan Yin. And then it goes to the Longman cave, where the inscription says that the principle has been traced to its source, and we can rest on it. Now, the Lok Sabhas have been many. I mean, we can talk about Hirsi, Fahilan, and even as late as the Islamic period in the 14th century, 16th century, there were ambassadors from China in Bay of Bengal and in the court here. And there was a regular exchange of messages and embassies. And so, we are talking about reviving the Lok Sabha tradition. So I see ourselves as Lok Sabhas, as intercultural translators. Number one. Number two, you know, this tradition, the Asiatic Society Secretary is here. He is also the president of this institution. I recall how Jones, Tessitari, and Kosomoda Koros in the Asiatic Society acted as intercultural translators, and they laid their bones in India, in Bengal, in pursuit of their ardent mission, of building Western civilization on Eastern foundations. So, when we are talking about intercultural translation, I am talking about making it relevant and contextually appropriate today. Now, the SDG goals, we can see that the Badavans are getting submerged in the sea surge in Sundarban. We can see that there are 9 drying rivers which are being looked at under Ushar Mukti by the West Bengal government, and as part of the Bharat Rural Livelihood Federation, I also look at it. But the beach to valley approach ignores the indigenous knowledge system on the water veins and the water harvesting structures, etc., which should be done. So, the current approach of revitalizing rivers cannot succeed unless we look at the mountain melt, and we look at the sea surge, and if we look at the fact that biocultural diversity, water towers, rivers, forests, they don't respect political boundaries. So when we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, a 32-lane highway across so many countries, we forget that the cultural and biological diversity nexus in this region is the most important aspect beyond building physical infrastructure. So the KSS and the scholars here who have probed the depths of scholarship in this area, and we have talked about ethnography, and I would mention cognitive and replicative archaeology in this regard. There have been Pleistocene seafaring expeditions from Sumba Island in Indonesia to Australia to look at the Austronesian dispersal, and that also takes off from the Bay of Bengal basin and this area and when you look at prehistoric rock art and current ethnographic expressions of art as a matter of cognitive archaeology and application, we can read the bioneurological and entoptic constants which link human expression across Australasia in similar forms. So we are talking about this partnership to go beyond the renewal of the memories and their recollection or collection of objects or museumization of the landscape. We are talking about regenerating these aspects of scholarship and hermeneutic action, circular movement between past and present, between present and future, to be able to revitalize the Bengal Basin as a zone of interaction. So, when Hegel spoke about inadequate symbolism of Indian culture, because it divinized the finite or finitized the divine, or when a person like Paul Hecker, a scholar of Advaita Vedanta, spoke about the logos seed being fruitful only when transported to the soil, fertilized by the Judeo-Christian rationalism and naturalism. They have forgotten that the adequacy of symbolism is a perpetual position in this area, which can easily be revived by walking back and walking forward. So for me, some of these concrete examples, you can have a multiplicity of examples about that, but it is ultimately relevant for revitalizing these contact where the boundaries of natural and social sciences dissolve, where the natural sciences need to be humanized and the social sciences need to be replete with human care. So with this hope, we are launching this action and contemplation exercise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we are towards the end of this particular session, and it is the time of presidential address. So, to be in track with time, I will not take much time. Simply, just a few words. There are not many, in fact, energetic, meaningful, effective civil society groups involved in research in Kolkata actually. But KSAS is there. And KSAS, despite different hurdles, is trying hard, to make a place for it. And with the support of all you, your members of the KSAS and like these institutions, Anthropological Survey of India, we are, in fact, we are there and probably will continue to be there and, in fact, make our mark in the areas of research, at least in this part of the country. This is a kind of collection of academicians from different streams, from anthropology, archaeology, history, social science, international relations, And as a result of that, we have a kind of approach that is integrated. We do not compartmentalize knowledge. And if you look at this particular program, that is this conference on Bengal Basin and Bay of Bengal interactions, where you find and you look into the schedule that from different perspectives, these issues have been, kind of selected, presented, and will be discussed in the forthcoming sessions. In my case, it's a kind of learning experience because I belong to the strategic studies, which is very different from this kind of, ethnic or anthropological approaches that we have discussed here. And in fact, the idea here is, in terms of strategic studies, that this particular zone is very important as a gateway to Indian Ocean and from Indian Ocean to Indo-Pacific. So, as our keynote speaker was talking about revitalizing this particular area, in geopolitical terms, it has already been revitalized. It's a very important zone with security implications, with interference from external actors in this particular region. So we are very much concerned with this particular area, what its future would be, what kind of trade, what kind of security issues would emerge. And when we say security issues, it's not merely military strategic issues, it also includes climate change and other aspects. And then it itself becomes a kind of sub-orbit of kind of power struggle that might take place in this particular region. And that's why this particular Bay of Bengal Basin is very important, in strategic sense. And it is therefore, in fact, necessary to visit, relook, explore the traditions, what are the kind of essential features that this particular region exhibited in past, and what is happening at present, so that we can have a map for the future. So, once again, thank you very much for this particular session. All my dignitaries here in this time. And now we have a formal vote of thanks. So I would request Dr. Rafika Bushu to present the formal vote of thanks. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson and distinguished guests, on behalf of the organizing committee of the Bay of Bengal, on the Bengal Basin and Bay of Bengal Interaction Sphere, Pan-Indian and Pan-Asian Contacts Conference, organized by Kolkata Society for Asian Studies in collaboration with Anthropological Survey of India, I, Urpita Basu, the Treasurer of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies, extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for gracing this inaugural session with your esteemed presence. We are immensely honored to have Professor Subhadra Mitra Channa, Professor Gautam Sengupta, Professor D.V. Sharma among us today as our distinguished guests. Your invaluable insights and expertise in the fields of anthropology, history, and archaeology will undoubtedly enrich our discussions over the course of this conference. A special note of appreciation goes to Dr. Shomika De Basu, Secretary of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies, for her warm welcome, and to Dr. Kalyan Kumar Chakraborty for delivering an enlightening keynote speech, setting the tone for the engaging dialogue that lies ahead. We are deeply grateful to Dr. Shobna Bhattacharya, former Professor South and Southeast Asian Studies, Department of University of Calcutta, for her thoughtful message, which highlights the significance of our deliberations in the context of South and Southeast Asian Studies. Last but not least, I extend my sincere thanks to Professor Anindya Jyoti Majumdar, President of Kolkata Society for Asian Studies, for his inspiring presidential address, guiding us with his vision and wisdom. I would like to acknowledge the tireless effort of our organizing team, volunteers, sponsors, and all those behind the scene who have worked diligently to make this conference a reality. As we embark on this journey of exploration and exchange, let us embrace the spirit of collaboration and intellectual inquiry, striving to deepen our understanding of the historical and cultural dynamics that have shaped the Bengal Basin and the Bay of Bengal interaction sphere. Thank you once again for your participation and support. Here's to a fruitful and rewarding conference. Thank you.
Okay, this session comes to its close.